Have you ever noticed that the people who talk the most about a powerful mind are often the ones who know the least how to use it? The truth is, your mind doesn't become powerful by repeating motivational phrases in the mirror or memorizing half a dozen self-help books. Carl Jung knew this, and that's why he asserted, almost provocatively, that true mental power isn't about thinking more, but about thinking less, more precisely and consciously. And here's the part many people don't want to hear. This power isn't hidden in secret techniques you have to pay dearly to learn. It's already within you, right now. It's just that your ego has done an excellent job of burying it under bad habits, constant distractions, and a persona that lives to please others. What I'm going to show you today isn't some fancy book theory or a simplified law of attraction to sell quick promises. These are 5 practical habits, tested, applicable, and aligned with how your mind really works. Habits that not only unlock your mental clarity, but also activate parts of your unconscious you didn't even know were dormant. And yes, some of them may make you uncomfortable, because they'll expose patterns you've spent years pretending not to see. But that's precisely where the power lies, in the discomfort that forces change. If you apply what you're about to hear here, you'll start seeing results almost immediately, not because the universe conspires magically, but because your perception will change. And when perception changes, the whole world changes with it. Now, the choice is yours. Continue using your mind on autopilot or learn to use the same map Jung used to guide thousands of people to their hidden potential. Get ready, because the first habit already begins by breaking one of the biggest lies you've heard about positive thinking. The door that opens from within. There are doors that no external effort can break down, no matter how much force you use. These are the internal doors, those without a visible lock, because the key is hidden within your own consciousness. Carl Jung would say, this is the point where spirituality ceases to be theory and becomes experience. When the ego realizes it doesn't control the movement of opening, it merely creates space for it to happen. The curious thing is that most of the time people try to enter themselves as if they were breaking into someone else's house, pushing hastily, breaking locks, demanding immediate answers. And then they become frustrated. Opening this door requires more detachment than effort, more presence than anxiety. It's like shadow work. There's no point in shouting for the shadow to leave. You have to sit beside it, in silence, until it trusts. If you want to start turning this key, try setting aside 10 minutes a day to simply be with yourself. No cell phone, no music, nothing. It seems simple, but it's in this nothingness that the door begins to give way. The most intriguing thing about this door is that, unlike those outside, it doesn't lead to a new physical place, but to a new perception of yourself. The first step is to abandon the illusion of the persona you wear every day to survive. This social mask, carefully constructed to please, protect, and avoid conflict, is precisely the layer that covers the doorknob. Jung said it's not about destroying the persona, but knowing when to use it and when to set it aside. When you open this door, you encounter your own archetypes, the wise man who observes, the child who fears, and the warrior who insists. Each of these aspects, if ignored, becomes a guardian of the door, keeping it closed. Therefore, a practical exercise is to write down, for a week, everything you feel but don't say, and observe which parts of yourself try to prevent you from being honest. And perhaps the most challenging part, realizing that this door doesn't open forever. It opens a crack, invites you in, and then closes again, as if testing your willingness to return. Many give up after the first time, thinking access should be constant. But the ego always tries to regain control, and that's where true spiritual discipline begins. You don't own the door, you're its guest. And each time you enter, you see a different reflection, as if a mirror awaits you on the other side, ready to show you what you can't see from the outside. But this mirror is no ordinary one, and what it reveals can change everything about the path you believe you're on. The mirror that doesn't lie. There's an inevitable moment on the path of those seeking self-knowledge, facing a mirror that reflects more than just what's visible. This mirror isn't attached to the bathroom wall. It inhabits the consciousness. Carl Jung would say it's the symbolic image of the unconscious, where the ego can't manipulate the angle, the light, or the expression to look right in the photo. True spirituality begins when you stop looking for what you want to see in the reflection and start observing what's actually there. It's uncomfortable, sometimes painful. In shadow work, this stage is almost a rite of passage, realizing that it's impossible to continue blaming the world for the cracks that appear in the glass. To put this into practice, try asking yourself, when faced with a conflict, what in this situation is a reflection of me? The answer almost always reveals more about you than about the other person. The mirror that doesn't lie isn't impressed by titles, achievements, or the persona you presented at the last work meeting. It captures what vibrates behind your words, your hidden intentions, the fears that shape your decisions. And curiously, the more you try to disguise it, the more your reflection reveals it. It's like when someone smiles, but their eyes betray exhaustion. Something any attentive observer notices, even if unconsciously. Working with archetypes helps translate this reflection. You can see in the same face the hero's mask and the orphan's despair. Therefore, a useful practice is to record your most intense emotional reactions and then analyze them as if they were someone else's. What would you see if it weren't you there? Often the answer isn't pretty, but it's liberating. The scariest thing about this mirror is that it cannot be broken. You can ignore it, turn your face away, even try to cover it, but it will always be there. In relationships, in choices, in silences. The more you run away, the more distorted the reflection becomes, until one day it becomes inescapable. And it is at this point that many realize that before moving forward, they must cross an internal threshold. It is as if before this mirror, a silent guardian appears, assessing whether you are ready to cross. A guardian who accepts no bribes, justifications, or excuses, and who only allows passage when he recognizes that you are willing to see all that you truly are. The guardian of the inner border. In every journey of self-discovery, there's a point that can't be crossed by impulse or curiosity. This point is guarded by something, or rather someone, that isn't a real person, but a symbolic presence. Carl Jung would see it as the personification of the unconscious, saying, "Thus far you've come with the ego. From here on, you'll only leave something behind." This guardian isn't interested in your goodwill or how much you've read about spirituality. It wants to know what you're willing to let go of, beliefs, habits, even parts of your own persona. That's why so many people stop at this very point. A practical example? Imagine someone who wants to live more authentically, but keeps saying yes to please everyone. The guardian notices and keeps the gate closed. It's a constant test. The role of this guardian is clear: to prevent you from crossing into an internal territory you cannot yet sustain. In shadow work, this manifests when old memories, emotions, or traumas begin to surface, and the mind reacts by trying to rationalize or escape. This is the guardian at work. It is not an enemy, although it may seem so, but a filter that separates what is ready from what still needs to mature. Ancient archetypes represent this role: the dragon at the castle gate, the elder in the cave, the monk asking an impossible question. In practical terms, this can be experienced as internal resistance, procrastination, or even self-sabotage. Recognizing the guardian is the first step toward dialoguing with it, not trying to destroy it. The curious thing is that this guardian, once respected, becomes an ally. When it senses you're ready, it opens the passage itself. And, as you cross, the internal landscape changes completely. Noises diminish, illusions lose strength, and a new kind of silence begins to settle in. It's as if on the other side, the mind itself changes language, stopping speaking in scattered thoughts and beginning to communicate directly and profoundly. But before delving into this new territory, you must learn to listen to this silence. A silence that, despite seeming empty, holds more answers than any explanation the external world can offer. The silence that speaks. Most people fear silence because it doesn't settle. It doesn't fill with distractions. It doesn't offer applause. It doesn't tell stories to soothe. Carl Jung saw silence as fertile territory where spirituality can flourish without the constant interference of the ego. But this kind of silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the absence of internal noise. And when it arrives, it begins to reveal truths you might not want to hear. This is why many prefer to keep their minds occupied, scrolling endlessly through their phones, engaging in irrelevant conversations, seeking any stimulus that will prevent this encounter. But paradoxically, it's in this silence that the greatest advances in shadow work occur. If you want to try it, turn off all your devices and sit in an empty room for 15 minutes, simply observing the flow of your thoughts. The initial discomfort is the guardian testing your readiness. This silence is a peculiar teacher. It doesn't explain, it simply shows. It shows how much of your persona is noise, how much of your decisions are automatic defenses, how much of your life has been shaped by external expectations. It's like an invisible mirror that instead of reflecting images, reflects patterns. And this can be brutal. You might realize, for example, that the project you fought for wasn't your dream, but an attempt to prove something to someone. By allowing yourself to listen to this silence, archetypes begin to emerge clearly. The sage, the wounded child, the rebel, all trying to speak at once. This is where the practice of mindfulness becomes valuable. It allows you to hear each voice without getting lost in the chaos. But there's a fascinating point. The more you surrender to this silence, the more it ceases to be empty and transforms into language. A language that uses not words, but sensations, images, and even synchronicities. Suddenly, a forgotten memory emerges as an answer to a question you didn't even know you had. A symbolic image appears during a daydream and carries more meaning than any lecture. It's silence, revealing the hidden vocabulary of your psyche. And when you begin to understand it, the inner theater, that stage where thoughts and emotions play out, becomes visible. And there, every character has something to say, even if you haven't invited everyone to the play. The theater of thoughts. The mind is a stage where characters enter and exit without asking permission. Carl Jung would say that the ego desperately tries to be the director of this play, but rarely has complete control over the plot. Spirituality teaches that to understand one's own script, one must stop acting and start observing. In shadow work, this theater is revealing. You realize that certain roles repeat themselves as if bound by a lifelong contract. The inner critic, the over-optimist, the saboteur, the dreamer, they're all part of the scene. A practical exercise is to spend an entire day writing down the characters that appear in your head in different situations. At the end, reread it as if it were a script written by someone else. You'll be surprised by the constancy of the roles. The curious thing is that this theater doesn't just happen when you're alone. It continues during conversations, decisions, and even moments of silence. The persona you present to the world is just a prominent character, but behind the scenes, archetypes influence every line, every choice. It's like when you politely accept an invitation, but internally a character screams that they don't want to go. By recognizing these inner voices, you gain the chance to renegotiate their roles. This doesn't mean kicking anyone out of the cast, but adjusting lines, screen time, and even changing who stars in certain acts. And then something changes. When you stop blindly identifying with each character, you begin to perceive the play's structure. And this structure is made of symbols, images, and associations that aren't always conscious. It's as if behind the scenes, there's a hidden scriptwriter, the unconscious, organizing each act to lead you to something greater. When you notice this, a new curiosity arises. Where do these recurring images come from, these scenarios that seem familiar even without explanation? And at this point, you begin to approach a fascinating aspect, the secret language of images, which shapes and guides the story long before any dialogue is spoken. The language of images. Before learning to speak, humans already thought in images. Carl Jung observed that the unconscious communicates primarily through symbols and archetypes, not through long sentences or logical reasoning. This is why, in shadow work, a seemingly absurd dream can carry more truth than rational advice. Spirituality understands this as the primary language of the soul, a silent language that, if ignored, continues to operate in the subterranean realm of the mind. When you see a place you've never visited and feel a strange familiarity, or when an animal appears repeatedly in your life, it's the unconscious using images to speak to you. A practical exercise is to keep an image diary. Write down everything that recurs in your dreams, in your sudden memories, or in the coincidences of the day. Before long, a pattern begins to emerge. What's most intriguing is that this language is both deeply personal and collective. Certain symbols, like water, fire, and trees, appear in every culture, connecting individuals to a collective unconscious that Jung described so often. But the way they emerge for you carries a unique signature. A tree can mean safety for some and imprisonment for others, depending on your personal history. When you open yourself to this language, you begin to realize that life not only happens, but also writes itself through signs. This requires attention, being present enough to notice when an image reappears in the theater of the mind or in the external world. By mastering this symbolic listening, something powerful happens. You stop interpreting life solely with words and begin to perceive hidden narratives unfolding in parallel. It's as if, behind the visible plot, there were a secret film playing in slow motion, full of clues about what needs to be integrated. And by following these clues, you inevitably stumble upon something essential, the understanding that recognizing images and symbols isn't enough. You need to nurture them. And nurturing here isn't reinforcing illusions, but nourishing the invisible that sustains the visible. A task that requires intention, practice, and above all, presence. The art of feeding the invisible. Everything you see is just the tip of a psychic iceberg. Most of your life, decisions, fears, impulses, desires, is born in a territory that cannot be photographed or measured, the invisible. Carl Jung said that ignoring this dimension is like trying to cultivate a garden by caring only for the flowers and forgetting the roots. True spirituality understands that to transform external reality, you must nourish what lies beneath the surface. This nourishment is not material, but symbolic. It can come from simple rituals, writing before bed, creating a sacred space at home, or even having deep conversations with people who are unafraid of silence. In shadow work, this means energizing what you would normally avoid looking at, fears, memories, traumas. Because even these parts need nourishment so they stop acting underground. The common mistake is to think that feeding the invisible is simply visualizing results or repeating positive affirmations. This can be helpful, but it's only the surface of the work. Feeding the invisible involves observing what your persona tries to hide and offering space for it to exist without judgment. For example, if you feel anger but suppress it to appear spiritual, you're letting that energy stagnate. Instead, you can transform it into movement, writing, dancing, shouting in a safe space. This transmutation is a kind of psychic nourishment. Archetypes, when neglected, become distorted. When nourished, they balance. This is why creative practices, painting, writing, music, are so powerful. They give form to the invisible and allow it to breathe. When you begin to nurture this dimension, you notice that life responds in subtle yet profound ways. Small coincidences begin to happen. Dialogues take on more meaning. Dreams become more vivid. It's as if the invisible, now strengthened, begins to speak back. And this silent conversation creates a kind of trust that cannot be explained in words. The feeling of being aligned with something greater. But inevitably, this process awakens a calling. A calling that doesn't come from outside, nor from someone telling you what to do, but from within, like a whisper asking you to follow it to the next chapter of your inner journey. The call to the next chapter. Every inner journey, no matter how intense, reaches a point where stillness turns into restlessness. It's as if, after passing through doors, mirrors, and guardians, something deep inside whispers, "Now, go further." Carl Jung saw this moment as a natural transition rite in the process of individuation. It's not a comfortable invitation. The ego would prefer to stay in familiar territory where the persona has already learned to move safely. But true spirituality isn't sustained by comfort. It demands movement, even when there's no clear map. This call can come in subtle forms: a recurring dream, a constant discomfort with routine, or the feeling that something important is about to happen. Recognizing this signal is the first step. What makes this calling so powerful is that it doesn't settle for pre-written answers. It raises questions that disrupt the script you thought was definitive. It's the kind of impulse that leads someone to move to a new city without knowing exactly why, or to abandon a stable job to follow an intuition that can't be explained logically. In shadow work, this moment is critical. The unconscious has already shown enough for you to realize you can no longer return to the old version of yourself. The archetypes that were previously scattered begin to align, forming an internal chorus that, though silent, is impossible to ignore. It's as if every part of you is saying, "We're ready, are you?" Answering this call doesn't mean having all the answers, but accepting the journey of questions. It means trusting that the next chapter doesn't reveal itself all at once, but rather page by page as you progress. And that's where the real magic happens. Each step taken on this path opens new doors, new mirrors, new guardians, and inevitably, new silences that speak. It's a cycle that repeats itself, but never in the same way, because you're no longer the same. And now, as this new stage approaches, the question remains, one that echoes not only in your mind, but in your soul. What happens when you finally say yes to this call? Now that you know these 5 habits, the question is, what will you do with them? Because knowing doesn't change anything. Applying changes everything. Carl Jung said that awareness without action is like a map without a road, pretty to look at, useless for getting anywhere. So, ask yourself, which of these habits will you put into practice today? And what's more, what old habit that only weakens your mind are you willing to let go of now? Perhaps throughout this video, you've felt that nagging spark of realizing you were living on autopilot. Great. Use that restlessness as fuel. Don't wait for the perfect Monday or the right moment, because the right moment never comes. Start now, even in small steps. Write it down, test it, repeat it. The hidden power of your mind won't be activated by more content consumption, but by direct, daily, and intentional experience. And if you want to continue immersing yourself in this kind of conversation, where spirituality, ego, persona, shadow work, and archetypes meet in a practical and transformative way. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications now. Here, each video is a step in your own inner journey, so tell me in the comments which habit will be your turning point, and which part of you are you ready to release?